Okay, thank all of you for joining us, and I want to thank Team Maryland here for all their work, including today with our hearing where we were focused on the situation at NASA Goddard. And I just want to say we've got the bad news and then the good news, and I do want to end on the good news. The bad news is that the takeaway we hear from the NASA Goddard story is part of a larger story where the Trump administration has really eaten away at American leadership in many areas, including when it comes to space and innovation and exploration. And we're seeing them cut deeply in many areas, but one of the areas they're cutting in is space science. And if you think about it, you can't have a space program if you don't have the space science. They've also been cutting into very important work when it comes to earth sciences, understanding our planet, our weather patterns, and the American people are paying the consequences both in terms of lost opportunity, but also people literally leaving the United States to go work elsewhere because cuts in innovation here open the door to our competitors and others overseas. And so if you look at NASA Goddard, they were one of the victims early on of Elon Musk coming in with a chainsaw. And they were offered these forks in the roads and early buyouts, and the result was about a 35% cut in the Goddard workforce, right? So it went from about 10,000 people, if you look at civil servants, so federal government civil servants, and the contracting community, about a 35% overall cut. So you're down to about 6,600 people, and a lot of engineers left. And some of them have gone to Europe, for example. So a great loss for Maryland, but really a great loss for the country. We're fighting back, all of us. The Trump administration proposed a 46% cut, a 46% cut to the space science budget. And in the Senate Appropriations Committee, on the CJS subcommittee, which is the subcommittee that covers science, the S is for science, we rejected entirely those cuts. And in fact, we increased our investment in space science, and that will help the country. It will also help NASA Goddard. I should also just mention that Wallops Launch Center, which is on the Eastern Shore where most of the people who work there are Marylanders, comes under the mothership of NASA Goddard, so they're part of this. And APL, which comes under Johns Hopkins, does a lot of work with Goddard. And APL is also in Maryland, as I said, under Johns Hopkins. They do the Dragonfly mission, for example. So we are fighting back. We rejected the Trump administration cuts. NASA Goddard is on schedule, actually ahead of schedule, for what's called the Nancy Roman Space Telescope. You remember early on, I know Congressman Ivey does and Congressman Hoyer, when we went out there, we actually saw the Nancy Roman Space Telescope, and the Trump administration was going to cancel that mission originally, even though it was ahead of schedule and under budget. Well, that's back on track, and we're working to get other major missions on track and in some cases accelerated, for example, habitable worlds. If people want to go into details, we're all willing to do that, but the big takeaway is the Trump administration is really eating away at our competitiveness around the world. They are ceding ground to China and our adversaries, and we are pushing back here with everything we've got. And one of the people who's been a great partner here in the Senate to push back on all this has been Senator Alsobrooks. There you are.
Here I am. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. So I want to just first echo what Senator Van Hollen said, in starting with a bit of good news. And the good news is that Maryland serves as a repository of so much innovation and talent and expertise in the areas of science, research, medicine. Maryland just really is a repository of individuals who have that strength. The bad news is that as a result of the Trump administration's smash and grab, and the smash and grab is that it has destroyed so many institutions and really taken the money out of these institutions that really are the hallmark of America's exceptionalism. It is the case quite literally that America is exceptional, not only here but globally, because of our prowess in research and science and medicine and exploration, science exploration, which is why it has been so irresponsible of this administration to oversee the cuts that they have indiscriminately, the ones that they, in my mind, don't even understand what they have damaged and destroyed. And we heard today from NASA Goddard about those cuts. As you heard the senator say, our senior senator, about a third, 35% of reduction in workforce. I should emphasize that these are experienced individuals, an average of 20 years experience. We heard as well that of the third plus who have been cut, 45% of them are engineers. And so this is not expertise that is easy to replace. And it is the American people who will suffer, and America itself who will suffer as a result of these cuts. When we think about the research that impacts studies regarding water quality, and it is, again, the fact that America's global strength has to do with our prowess there. And so we are really concerned about it. And I want to thank my colleagues who have worked really in a bicameral sense to make sure that we are doing everything we can to restore the funding that has been cut. Although, again, it is the case that we cannot bring back, at least in this moment, the expertise and the experience that have been lost as a result of this administration's indiscriminate cuts and irresponsibility where this is concerned. So next, I'll hand over to Congressman Steny Hoyer, who's been a real stalwart in so many ways here and in so many other instances to bring dollars over many years to NASA Goddard and to our efforts to increase science, research, and medicine.
Goddard is an extraordinary asset to the state of Maryland. More importantly, it is an extraordinary asset to the United States of America, and as well to the global community, which has over the years relied on Goddard and NASA generally for information that it needed for all sorts of different reasons, including national security, including agricultural production, including saving ourselves from extraordinary weather events because we knew what was happening. NASA Goddard has been an agency that looks to the far past and looks to the present and the future. When this administration started, it started with an assertion that it was going to cut literally trillions of dollars from the budget and hundreds of thousands, perhaps 1 million federal employees. It did so not with a scalpel, not with knowledge of the consequences of their actions, but with a chainsaw and a focus only on numbers. Today, Senator Van Hollen convened a group of 6 people who had intimate knowledge of the importance of NASA, the work that it does, and particularly Goddard Space Flight Center. And what we heard was that people were given the opportunity to leave, not work for 7 or 8 months, and be paid, and then lose the skill and judgment and experience that they had. A tragic action on behalf of this administration. As a result, they found that they fired people or allowed people to retire who were needed. And therefore, we've seen the hiring back of some people. The Congress, which is now controlled by the Republicans, said that action was detrimental to America. And as a result of Senator Van Hollen said, the Senate, under Republican control, did not accept those cuts. In the House, a 46% cut was reduced by 30% to 16%. And I believe the majority of the House believes that the Senate number is a better number. So what I've asked the folks that testified before us is to give the American people the sense of the consequences of the administration's actions, the detriment it has caused to America, and the detriment that it will cause to the international community in one sense and great benefit in another sense. Because these people who have so much talent, so much importance to science, to engineering, to future exploration and innovation, will be seeking employment with those either overseas in Europe or overseas in Asia, to America's detriment. Chris, thank you very much for having this hearing, and let us hope that the American people will say to the Congress of the United States, do not disinvest in science. That is the future that will be made better by science. Thank you. I'll next yield to Glenn Ivey.
Glenn Ivey, who's been pushing to have this hearing for a long time and represents the congressional district that's home to NASA Goddard. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator, for making it come together. I appreciate that very much. After Sputnik shocked the United States and woke us out of our slumber, President John Kennedy committed to putting a man on the moon and making sure that we did it first. And he did. The program that he started was NASA, and it made us the envy of the world in space exploration and aerospace technology. And we've retained that position up until this time. Unfortunately, though, as you've just heard a moment ago, we're facing a lot of cuts. We're facing a retrenchment that's driven by the Trump administration's misguided approach to space research and technology. It's undermining our ability to maintain a prime and leadership position in the world at the worst possible time. Now, a key to that has been the human capital that has led NASA to this position that we have now. Unfortunately, though, the Trump administration has driven many of our talented people out of NASA. They mentioned the retirements. A lot of people retired because they didn't think they had a better alternative. They actually wanted to stay, but were afraid and concerned about the chaos and confusion that was going on then based on the cuts that had come. And the cuts that are coming now, or have come, have led them to reduce the number of young talent that can come in and move up the ranks. In fact, there's a hiring freeze right now at NASA, so you can't bring the young talent in, and we're losing some of the more senior people who've been doing great work at NASA for decades. So we don't need another Sputnik moment. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to hang on to that human capital, that human talent, the genius that's made NASA the envy of the world. These are patriotic people doing great work. We need to make sure we give them the opportunity to continue to do that because the United States needs it, and frankly, the world needs it. And with that, I'll turn it over to Congressman Mfume.
Thank you very much. I just want to associate myself with the comments of my colleagues, which were very detailed and very, very sincere. One caution here in this press conference is that it be seen as a clarion call to our colleagues in the House and in the Senate to understand that the United States of America is on the threshold of losing its dominance in the area of space, science, and technology. The Department of Government Evil, which we all refer to as DOGE, took a chainsaw to this area of our government as like it did to so many others. And you're seeing a drain of individuals, scientists, engineers, and others leaving not just the state of Maryland, but the United States. We can't afford that. We can't tolerate it. And so we have continued to reach out to many of our colleagues. Fortunately, the House has reduced a 46% cut down to 16%. But the work that goes on at the Goddard Space Flight Center and the Hopkins Applied Physics Lab is work that cannot be produced overnight. And if we lose that dominance, we will find ourselves playing catch-up to the rest of the world. So we're here today to say, listen, it is indeed a clarion call, and we hope to have some concrete action as we continue against odds, but as we continue to push back. Please welcome April Delaney, who is also working with us very, very hard on this, and who has been one of the leaders in this area.
So to bring it home, I'm just going to say I also associate myself with all of the comments that have been made by Team Maryland and my colleagues. I am a Marylander on the Science, Space, and Technology SST committee in the House, and I actually worked in international satellite for 4 years. Goddard is a jewel for this country and for our nation, and actually for the world. And NASA has always been a jewel, and we've been preeminent. Just want to reiterate 2 or 3 points. One, foundational research, NOAA, NASA, it is, of course, it underpins not only innovation and our U.S. competitiveness, but it also does so much for our STEM, our workforce within Maryland and across this country, and also in terms of the businesses and the aerospace businesses that go forth from it. 2, it is so important to emphasize that these cuts, as Representative Hoyer articulated, often many of these cuts that are being undertaken are actually going to cost more in terms of our impact on our economy and our nation, but it's going to be very difficult to, they're done without true impact and realization of the causes. 3, it's also really important as we are looking at these budgets that we further look at, NASA is going to be reauthorized this year. It is up for reauthorization, and something that is very important that we all kind of highlight what is happening with respect to resources and their scope in the years ahead, because I believe that it is so important for our national security, for our competitiveness, for our workforce, that we remain the country that has always been the #1 in terms of innovation and at the forefront in terms of space and technology. So thank you very much. And thank you, Senator Van Hollen, for doing this.
Any questions for any member of the delegation? Yes. Are you talking about the changes on campus, or are you talking about the fundamental programs? So we did talk about some of the building closures, and we're all going to monitor the building closures very carefully to ensure there's no loss of actual capacity, right? I think some of the buildings on that campus have been vacant, and so some consolidation needed to happen, but it's happened in a way that has not, it's been haphazard. It has not been done in consultation with the employees. It's not been done in a smart way. So we're going to continue to monitor that effort. Now, we are focused collectively on the programs, right? The projects that can essentially provide for the opportunities of the future and the discoveries of the future at Goddard. So one of those, for example, is the Habitable Worlds program, and we're working to try to accelerate funding for the Habitable Worlds program as part of the NASA budget. There are many, many others as well, and I'm happy to go into details there. Yeah.
One of the things people ought to know about this is that the plan that is being executed, which is concerning us, and we're watching it very closely, is a plan that predated this administration. So that there was a plan, because they have some older buildings, they want to transfer people to a newer building. So the plan, which is perceived as undermining Goddard, is not a plan that was implemented by the DOGE or others in the Trump administration. It was a plan to make it more efficient and more effective. What, unfortunately, the administration is doing is exactly the opposite.
Any other questions, ma'am? Yeah, so I've met with him twice. As I think all of you know the story, he was nominated, it was withdrawn, and he's been renominated. And so a lot of what he told me, and others may have met with him as well, was a positive vision of the space program, including a recognition that you can't have a space program without the fundamental research, the space science. So we're on the same page. At the same time, as you may have seen, somebody, I assume somebody who did not want him confirmed, leaked a document that he had written where he talked about poaching some of the assets from places like NASA Goddard and transferring them to other sites in the country. So that was worrisome. He told me that he was not planning to do that it was simply a document that had different ideas out there, and he was not interested in pursuing them. You know, my view is show me. So that was concerning, but I can say that he at least said that he understands the Goddard mission and how important it is. I don't know if other colleagues want to. Okay, well, thank you all very much. We're happy to follow up one-on-one, and thank you to the Maryland delegation.
Is this your phone? Thank you.
No, it's not. Phone?
Okay, maybe it's Angela's.
No, I think it's, oh, Ben.
Oh, okay.
Okay.